Hi, I'm Paul Edwards, author of the Mourners Woods books, and first and foremost, a monster kid. Tonight, I'm reading Horror Monsters Magazine, issue number 7 from 1963. I thought you might enjoy flipping through this vintage magazine with me. Together, let's see what kinds of monster kid goodness is in here. All right, monster kids, do you see the typo on this cover? This is the cover of Horror Monsters Magazine, issue number 7 from 1963. I'll give you a minute. Can you find the typo? Here, let's even go closer. Do you see it? Last chance. Okay, here's the typo. Abbott and Costello. That's not how you spell Abbott. Abbott is how Bud Abbott spelled his last name. That's not right. A typo in a magazine is one thing. A typo on the cover is pretty bad. That's pretty bad. And some of you may remember I did a video on a monster magazine where they spelled Bela Lugosi's name wrong on the cover. That's pretty bad. This is not quite that bad, but it's not great. Nonetheless, we're going to get Lon Chaney Sr., The Man of a Thousand Faces. We're going to get Man-Made Monster, Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory, and my favorite horror comedy film, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. So it's a pretty good lineup, if we can get past the typo. If we can forgive them for the typo. Oh, and it's only 35 cents. Hey, what do you want for 35 cents? Okay. Oh, yikes. Wow. They got everything in the world going on in the background there. You get a special, horrible Cult of Horror membership card. Suitable for carrying in wallet or hanging in crypt. Under what circumstances would you have to take out and show your Cult of Horror membership card? Okay. Man-Made Monster. Shock Theater. We owe a lot to Shock Theater. We'll get to that. Here they spelled Abbott right. Abbott and Costello. The Man Who Could Cheat Death. Stefano De Mira? No. That's not right. Werewolf in the Girl's Dormitory. Oh, horror pinups. All right. Okay. Looks promising. Let's get to it. This is Man-Made Monster, but I feel like we just jumped into the middle of it. Was there another page here? Yep, there sure was. Okay. There we go. The Man-Made Monster. Lionel Atwill is great. I love Lionel Atwill. Lon Chaney Jr. He was really good at certain kinds of roles. This was a good kind of role for him. A sort of a everyman. Check him out. Lionel Atwill at work. He got cast as mad scientist several times. He also had a turn playing Professor Moriarty in one of the Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes films. Yep, I know I've asked this before, but where did the scientists get these slabs to strap someone down on? I mean, do they mail order them or something? Do they build them themselves? So it seems to me like an extremely suspicious thing to buy. Look, we're getting the whole story of the movie in here. Dialogue and everything. This was pretty good. Remember, it's 1963 when this came out. You didn't have this on home video unless it happened to be playing on TV the night you wanted to see it. The closest you could get to seeing it on demand was to have a magazine like this where you could read along, sort of like a picture book. This is a well-publicized picture of Lionel Atwill. You see this picture on the internet a lot. Well, at least you do the kind of internet searches I do. Vintage monsters, that kind of thing. Pretty creepy. Now he's got the death touch. Lon Chaney Jr., that is, has the death touch. Now wait a minute, wasn't the slab big enough to fit Lon Chaney Jr. earlier in the movie, who's a pretty big guy, and now it's just the right size for her? Maybe it's an adjustable slab. Maybe that's it. Oh, you get a happy ending. The end. They died laughing. So they're going to give us real pictures from monster movies, but with joke captions. But honey, the veterinarian told me to starve the dog before we wormed him. Who is that guy scribbling on my picture window? That's a little better. Abide with me. Yeah. If you get that one, you're ahead of me. That one's gone over my head. I want a hot dog. Really? Really? Okay. So in the late 1950s, I think it was 57 might have been the first year, Shock Theater was a package of 1930s and 40s horror movies that was syndicated out to local TV stations around the United States. And for a whole bunch of kids born in the 1950s especially, this was their first time seeing movies like Dracula and Frankenstein and the Wolf Man and the Invisible Man. They hadn't been in the theater in these kids' lifetime. So kids were becoming familiar with them by these Shock Theater packages. And it would be on late at night, like 10 or 11 at night. So you would have to stay up late. This is actually where we get the cliche of somebody staying up late to watch a scary movie. It goes back to Shock Theater. And Shock Theater took off like crazy in the late 50s and into the early 60s. There was Shock Theater, and there were millions of knockoffs of Shock Theater. Whatever television market you live in, they probably had their own version of Shock Theater. Where I grew up in Boston, it was Creature Double Feature, although ours was on Saturday afternoons rather than at night. But it was the same deal. So Shock Theater, even if you had never heard of it, we owe a lot of monster fandom to Shock Theater because they immortalized all these movies for the first generation of monster kids, the kids who were children from the late 50s through the mid 60s. And then it got passed down to my group, the second wave of monster kids in the 70s and so forth. So Shock Theater is where it's at. It all goes back to Shock Theater. Mind you, they didn't have any original programming. It was just old horror movies. And then so the first package was really successful, and then they put out a second package with more movies called Son of Shock. And there were even more films in the second round than there were in the first. The Mad Doctor of Market Street is a pretty deceptive title for this movie. Almost the entire movie takes place on a tropical island. You'd think this is like a gothic urban environment, the bad guys creeping around the shadows of the city alleys and streets at night. No, it's on a tropical island. Go figure. Okay, Bud Abbott and Lou Costello meet Frankenstein. This is my favorite horror comedy film. If you've never seen it, it absolutely is a must-see. If you're a fan of vintage monsters at all, you have to see this film. Now, Abbott and Costello were a very, very famous, popular comedy team on radio, and they'd had a bunch of successful movies. By the time they made this one, they had already had, I don't know exactly, maybe 24 movies. They had quite a large number of movies already. And when the idea was suggested for Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, Lou Costello, who was the funny man, Bud Abbott was the straight man, Lou Costello was absolutely against the idea. He thought it was the stupidest idea for a movie. And all through the production publicity, he was only half-heartedly going along with it. So a lot of times you'll see production stills, publicity pictures from Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. And the monsters look good. And Bud Abbott is playing along. And Lou Costello is just standing there because he's contractually obliged to. But he's sending a not-so-subtle signal that he doesn't like the idea of this movie. I think, with all respect to Lou Costello, history has proven him absolutely wrong. This movie was great. And it was so successful that Abbott and Costello then went and did a bunch of similar crossover movies where they met other movie monsters. There was Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy, Abbott and Costello Meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man. And there was early production of Abbott and Costello meeting Creature from the Black Lagoon. I can't remember all the details of this. There was no movie of it, but they were thinking of making an Abbott and Costello Meet Creature from the Black Lagoon when the first Creature from the Black Lagoon came out, but they never wound up doing it. My favorite scene in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is when they're delivering the exhibits to the House of Horrors, and Costello keeps getting frightened out of his mind. Oh, Mr. McDougal. So, funny thing, they actually got Bela Lugosi back to play Count Dracula in this movie. Lugosi played Dracula on stage a million times, but he only played Dracula in 2 movies. Dracula, 1931, and this film, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, in 1948. And Glenn Strange, who was then the current Frankenstein monster, appeared as the Frankenstein monster in this. And Lon Chaney Jr., who was the only actor who ever played the Wolfman in the golden age of Hollywood, came back as the Wolfman for this. Yeah. You can tell which ones are actually from the film. I don't want to create the impression that Costello was phoning it in during the film itself. His performance during the film was great. He played along just fine because he had to. I mean, he was professional about that. It's just in the publicity materials that he was not playing along. There's a very low body count in this, but the body count is not 0. And one of these people is doomed. Can you guess who? Well, you shouldn't be guessing. You should have seen the movie, and you should know. As a kid, I wondered why there was a castle in the United States. As an adult, I learned that there are castles in the United States. This was like a leftover Spanish castle down in Florida. This is a really good picture. I like this a lot. This is not a severed head. This is Costello in a restraint. See? The basic idea here is Dracula wants to revive the Frankenstein monster, and he wants to take out the criminal brain of the monster and put in a dopey, obedient brain who will do whatever Dracula says. So his assistant finds Lou Costello, who's the dumbest guy in town, and they're going to transplant Lou's brain into the Frankenstein monster. That's their master plan. Of course, they're not going to get away with it. Something good is coming here. Lon Chaney Jr. is trying to free Costello, and then he sees that the moon is full. But shouldn't he know that? And wasn't the moon full the night before when he attacked Mr. McDougal? Remember? I mean, there can be a full moon 2 nights in a row, but it's not common. Okay, it looks like we're not going to get what I wanted to see, which is when he turns into the Wolfman, there's a big fight between the Wolfman and Dracula, while simultaneously the Frankenstein monster is chasing Abbott and Costello around the castle. And the Frankenstein monster chasing Abbott and Costello around the castle is all funny. But they did the fight between Dracula and the Wolfman seriously. They didn't do that as a joke. They did that as if they were really doing a serious monster movie. And the fight between Dracula and the Wolfman was pretty one-sided because physically Dracula was no match for the Wolfman. And basically all Dracula could do was keep backing up and throwing things at him. But it was the second and final time that the Universal monsters had an actual knockdown, drag-out fight against each other. People have an idea that the Universal monsters fought each other in the movies. They didn't, except for 2 times. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. They had a big knockdown, drag-out fight there. And in this film, Dracula versus the Wolfman. Those were the only 2 fights that the Universal monsters had. In other franchises, like in Mexican horror movies, the monsters have fought each other. And in the Paul Naschy films, these monsters have fought each other. Paul Naschy's Wolfman used to fight vampires all the time. But in the actual Universal films, not so much. Oh, and look, we're at the end. Yep. Horror Monsters Mail. If you don't like our mags, don't buy them. Son, these mags are made in a dark cellar by things so horrible that they defy description. Good for you. Good for you. The 1,000 Faces of Lon Chaney Sr. Lon Chaney Sr. was the father of all horror movie actors. He was big in the silent film era. He only ever did 1 talking picture. But he played a lot of ghoulish characters, including the Phantom of the Opera, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and a vampire in what is sadly a lost film, London After Midnight. And he did all his own makeup and invented a whole lot of practical techniques for doing makeup. And the studio billed him as the Man of 1,000 Faces, which is how he's remembered now. Oh, this film was so creepy. You think old silent horror movie, it can't be that creepy, right? Wrong. Before the Hays Code in the 30s, movies were pretty intense. This is a silent film where Lon Chaney is a knife thrower in a circus, and the gimmick is that he's pretending that he has no arms. He's pretending that he is paraplegic, and he's throwing the knives with his feet, and he's doing everything with his feet. And little does anyone know, he really does have perfectly functional arms. He keeps them hidden all the time. Well, he falls in love with a girl, and he winds up murdering the girl's father, and the girl doesn't see his face, but sees that there are hands killing the girl's father. So he has to make sure now that the girl never, ever knows that he has arms, or he'll be caught as the murderer. So he goes to a crooked doctor and pays the crooked doctor to cut his arms off. So then he goes to the girl And now he truly doesn't have any arms. Of course, she doesn't think anything's different. She's always thought he never had any arms. And he's like all set to now marry her, he thinks. And he comes with his no arms and all set to fall in love with the girl. And the girl says, "Oh, I'm so glad that you're back in town. Here, I want you to meet this guy. He's my fiance. We just agreed to get married." It's brutal. Brutal. You're like, no. It's like the end of an O. Henry story. So then, of course, being a villain, then Lon Chaney's character tries to cook up a plan for revenge. I won't spoil the end for you, but the setup of it is grisly enough that it gives you an idea what you're looking at. What price horror? You know, Vincent Price had a radio show with the confusing title, The Price of Fear. The Price of Fear is not a great title, but they wanted to work his name, Vincent Price, into it. Go figure. And there's another round of these. And this is Napoleon's skull when he was a young man. No, that's not funny. Somebody swiped his wristwatch. That's a little funny. Not very, but a little. I know I asked for a large sandwich loaf, but this is ridiculous. That's okay. What kind of powder have you been using, my dear? Blasting powder? That's the best one of the four. The Man Who Could Cheat Death. From Hammer Films. Every time I think I've seen every last Hammer film, I find that there's some other one I've overlooked. I mean, I've seen all the monster ones, but they did a lot of like murder stories too, like thriller type horror movies. Wow. Well, I'm gonna have to check this one out now. Okay, are you ready to take a quiz with me? Come on, you know you want to. All right, let's just try the first one. This Hollywood Harry horror is best remembered as the star of Fearless Fosdick Strikes Back, Son of the Sheik, The Magic Sword, Ma and Pa Kettle Get Loaded. You're liable to get chewed up by a Tyrannosaurus Rex if you take a trip to Fire Island, Land Unknown, Land Known, Santa Claus Village. Wow. Recent visitor at a Horror Monsters editorial conference was the robot menace from the movie Monster and the Ape, Jack, Doc, and Reggie Meet the Bowery Boys, Lolita, Curse of Kamashek. I don't know how many of these I can handle. All right, let's skip to the last one. Jo Morrow gets a fright in the night when she visits the creepy castle that houses 13 Ghosts, Polly Adler and the Girls, The Incredible Stinking Man. There was a movie called The Incredible Shrinking Man. Soupy Sales. He was a comedian. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh, and then if you blew it, here are the answers, upside down. There you go. All right. Yeah. Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory. This is really not that bad. The one thing that bothers me about this movie, honestly, more than anything, is that in the English dub, they keep using the word assassinated anytime they want to say killed. and it doesn't quite fit. But other than that, I mean, if that's your biggest complaint about it, that's not too bad. It's all right. It's exactly what it sounds like. There's a werewolf at a girls' school. Who is the werewolf? That's your question. I think werewolves lend themselves to whodunit stories really well. You know what my favorite werewolf whodunit is? It sounds silly, but Howling 5, The Rebirth. Howling 5, The Rebirth is almost entirely set in a European castle that's snowbound during a blizzard. And there are a whole bunch of characters there, and you know one of them is a werewolf, but you don't know which one. So it's sort of like an Agatha Christie and Then There Were None if it were a gory werewolf movie. And the first time I saw it, I did not correctly guess who the werewolf was until the end. Oh no, another round of these. She wouldn't say uncle. These girls are about to ram down the door of the Wolfman's cell and are telling the blonde to use her head. Oh, brother. After incarceration in the dormitory for some time, this gal is looking for a man, wolf or not. That reminds me of my favorite line in all of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, where the Wolfman is talking to Costello, and the Wolfman's in human form, and he says to Costello, "Soon the moon will rise, and I'll turn into a wolf." And Costello goes, "You and 20 million other guys." Wow. Nice. The hero and the Wolfman do a duet while dancing to the waltzing werewolf. That's not what's happening there. That's not true. Don't listen to him. A grave situation when they all go burying. Oh, check this out. Bela Lugosi fans. You can order Bela Lugosi memorabilia here. Look at number 1. Bela Lugosi seemed to sense he was going to die. A photographic copy of the last note he wrote before he died, $2. Photograph of Bela Lugosi's authentic Screen Actors Guild membership card with his authentic signature, $2. Oh my gosh. I can get monster fingernails. Monster masks galore. And monster gags, tricks and things. A Fu Wong Chinese disguise. Obviously, they're trying not to pay any copyright money for the Fu Manchu character. Trick cigars. How many kids in your neighborhood would you really convince that you were giving a real cigar to smoke to? Hopefully not many. Ooh, shrunken head for the win. Oh, rubber snakes. Shark tooth necklace. $3 Frankenstein monster mask. Black tint chewing gum. That's just mean. Come on. That's just mean. Oh, the Running Man. Pre-Schwarzenegger Running Man. Now you can hear these terror tales. Now this is something that would be worth buying. Horror stories on a vinyl LP. Yeah. And you can get a monster record player to play them on. Only $1.98, complete with record. Wow. Mind you, the records themselves that they were just selling on the last page, I think I saw that they were $2.99 or something, right? Yeah, well, $2.98, yeah. This one's $1.98. So you can get the actual record player for the same price as one record. And it comes with a sound effects record with it. Do-it-yourself werewolf kit. You get the Werewolf Curse, Werewolf Calendar, Origin and History of Werewolves, Werewolf Fangs, plus 6 wallet-sized photos of the world's all-time favorite wolfmen. All right. Oh, and I bet there's small versions of this. The Wolf Pack. Huge 8x10 glossy photos, suitable for framing. Or, if you prefer, vampire photos. You can get 6 8x10 glossies of this for $1. Huh. Or you can spend your money on back copies of Horror Monsters or Mad Monsters. Or a one-shot of The Black Zoo. That was pretty good, wasn't it? If you're a fan of classic monsters and vintage horror, check out my book series, the Mourners Woods books. I've written a series of novels that all take place in a haunted forest. I got a different cast of characters in each book, but they go to the same location, Mourners Woods, an isolated forest in the American Northwest. And they face different kinds of monsters and creatures in each book. I try to recapture the vibe and feel of 20th century horror in a contemporary setting. My books are self-published on Amazon. My books, again, are the Mourners Woods books. My name is Paul Edwards. Thanks for spending some time with me looking through Horror Monsters Magazine issue number 7. This was pretty good. I'll see you in Mourners Woods.